Madilynn Dale here, the chapter goddess. I am a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, podcaster, producer, and overall creative. With this show, I really want to focus on creatives and bring their authentic self to life. How are they motivated to pursue their passions? What have been the struggles along the way? Does self-care play an important role in who they are today and how they connect with the creative flow? Bringing one's authentic self to the forefront is important in this world that we live in currently. Sharing your self-care, your tips, and how you stay on track for things without losing it completely is also important. Self-care is not talked about enough, and authenticity and self-care are what I like to highlight with my creatives, as well as getting to know them. So get ready for a fun and entertaining show. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get ready to meet this episode's guest. Hey everyone, welcome to the Chapter Goddess Chat Live. I'm Madilynn Dale, and I've got a fun guest for you guys to meet today. And I'm hoping, knock on wood, that my internet does not stop in the midst of this because it is being weird today. Not sure why. But yeah, so appearances I've got coming up, just for those of you guys watching in the Oklahoma area, I will be at ReaderCon for Labor Day weekend. If you guys want to come by, I will have a booth set up on that Monday if you want signed copies. But the guest I've got for you guys today writes in an area that I have not so much experience in, and I'm curious to pick his brain a little bit about it and learn more about his process. But without further ado, let me bring him in and let him introduce himself.
Pick my brain. Don't pick my brain. I need what's left of it.
Yes, the perks of parenthood, because you're also a parent too, right?
Oh God, yeah. A few times over. No, it's lovely. Nice to meet you, Maddie, and thanks for having me on your show.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on. So go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about who you are and some of the work you've got out there.
Yeah. So, well, I think I quite like your question time before the show to get a little bit of background, because people aren't always just what they purport to be, and certainly that's the case for me. I mean, writing is a big passion of mine and has been for a long time, reading and writing, but there are many other things, interests that people have in general, I think, and I'm no exception there. So but certainly for the show, I'm sure we'll focus on my writing, but I've been doing that for, say, maybe publishing for maybe 15 years, I think. And, that's not, I haven't been active all of that time. Actually, talking of children, Maddie, the time and effort that's involved in there sometimes, although, a lot of people do manage to remain focused on their writing careers, and that's amazing. But it's not always the case. Otherwise, I think I like the way you use creatives in your intro, because I do feel that it touches on, you're not just creative in one thing. I think I think you tap into it's a certain kind of energy.
Oh yeah.
Certainly that you need, I think, to do or achieve what we want to achieve with writing in this case. But I feel like I'm creative in the kitchen as well. I love cooking. I've done a lot of renovation in my time as well, building, and I love to get my hands dirty in that creative sense.
Yes, no, I totally get it. I feel like as a creative in general, you have to have other creative outlets, like not just like one area, because it will drain you if you don't do it in other areas. Like you can see a painting, like I've done this, done with my son and stuff, but like painting and like, I know you create art too. But like those are all ways I feel like they kind of refill the creativity pot that's in all of our brains, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, no, I think specifically with writing, there are of course things that you focused on, or experiences that have had more meaning, certainly in my case, in my life, that's meant that I am intuitively more of a writer than certainly an artist. Yeah. I mean, I've illustrated two published books, and worked with two other artists on the others. But I regard myself first and foremost as a writer. Definitely, it's fun if you allow yourself to do the artwork as well, because it's just amazing. And more liberating, I think, than the writing in a way. It's a different feeling for me. Yeah.
I love that, because it's like you get to bring what you're seeing in your head to life differently.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that's something that I think authors, and I don't know how, I'm speaking for myself, of course, but you almost have to remind yourself, and you do get reminded when you meet people who enjoy your work, and occasionally that happens, where you can have a conversation with someone about what they like, and you realize that, yeah, actually, once upon a time, this was just not even a seed. It was just it's all there. It's you've got to put pieces together in a creative way and make something meaningful. But when you have done that, I think it's very powerful. Forget how significant it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Our conversation before the show has me curious now. We were talking about our children and soccer. So Spaceball.
Yeah.
Was that inspired from your son's love for soccer?
No, actually, that was before he was born. I have two sons and a daughter.
Yeah.
And this was inspired. I don't know about you, Maddie, but I always find this difficult. But I think so here it is for that particular book. I think I should maybe go. I've got a copy here. I can show your viewers. Yes. But so there's a lot of energy to the illustrations.
Wow.
Basically it follows the trajectory of a soccer ball. It's introduced with a boy saying that if he kicks a ball hard enough up into the air, it won't come back down again. So the whole book is dedicated to Einstein. Actually, I even put there's a picture of Einstein. I don't know if you can see him.
Yes.
He's kind of flattened on a soccer field.
Nice.
And there's a quote from him as well, which I so admire, like many other people, who he was and what he did, not just what he did, but his character. Yeah. And his quote here, I don't know if you can see that. Let me read it to you. It says, that Albert Einstein said that fantasy was more important than knowledge. Okay, and I just thought, I thought about that quote a lot at the beginning of this, that I wanted to dedicate to him, and how right it is in my experience of because I'm involved in research as well, and it's not to say that knowledge is not, of course, it's of paramount importance, huge importance, but what I think he meant was that you can't progress with in the ways that we understand that term, if you don't have, you can have knowledge, but then there's a kind of stasis if you don't have fantasy and then apply that knowledge. And I think that's certainly what he did in his academic life, and what he's famous for is using a little bit of fantasy of with what's already available to him with his knowledge, and look what you can create. So I love that quote. That's my understanding of it. Anyway, so the father says, if you kick a ball hard enough up in the air, it won't come back down again. So the boy has it, or it's not a boy or a girl. It's the child has a dream that they kick the ball into. I'm saying he because it's my boy. I play soccer with him a lot.
Yeah.
He has a dream. He kicks it out into space. So the whole story follows the ball across. It goes across our solar system, past every single planet. And the fun thing about this book is I wanted to make it a virtual journey from the center of Manchester in the United Kingdom to Old Trafford, which is the Manchester United football ground. I don't know if you know.
Mm-hmm.
So on every single planet in our solar system is a kind of landmark of that virtual journey that you can take online. And so there's these odd things like a telephone box, and there's Lou Macari's fish and chip shop. He's an old famous Man United football star. So it adds this kind of character to the story. Anyway, it's a bit bizarre. But then the whole thing hinges on the ball goes into the back of the net on Pluto, and the boy tells his father the dream the following day. And the father says that must be the greatest goal in the history of everything. And the boy, and so this is a bit like me being the boy then. I mean, it's not, it's not really. I mean, I'm not a great soccer fan myself, but what I am is I do think about certain expressions and they stick in my head. And that's me being the boy then in the book thinks, well, what is the history of everything? What is my history? What's yours? What do we share? What don't we share culturally, socially, all these. And so there follows his kind of reverie of there's 4 or 5 pages where there's no text. It's just almost symbolic images of our history and how it might be represented.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then so it's really dynamic. It's a lot of fun. I used, how we have to use certain things that we think might involve the reader and bring the reader into entertain. So I've used space, which is extremely popular, of course, and soccer, which, I think is one of the most, if not the most popular sport on the planet. So it certainly has those two themes going on that will attract kids, and they love it for those reasons. But the reason for me writing it is because I want them to eventually or ultimately think about their history and the history in this moment, the history that they recognize, the family's history, all of it. So that was key for me. But in terms of the inspiration, I find that really difficult. I don't know about you as an author, but I wish there was a formula for motivation and inspiration.
Yes.
But I think ultimately it's about keeping an open mind, and being able to make connections, I think. And then, working on, I think once you have an idea, for me, ideas are quite easy to have. It's just the way my mind works, I guess. But then, then it's a lot of work to get that into the shape that you want. So that shouldn't be underestimated. It's not, oh wow, I've got a great idea, and I think certainly I've had many ideas where I leave them. I don't know about you, but I leave it in my head for a while, and then if it doesn't really appeal to me in a week or two, after you've got over that initial excitement of what was appealing, I don't do anything about it.
That is actually a good point, because I've done that with several of my stories. It's like the idea is there. Sometimes I'll write it down, But yeah, if it doesn't stick around, if it's not like persistently like, hey, you need to write me, hey, you need to write me, it kind of doesn't come into fruition, because that's how my trilogy that I'm working on finishing up, I'm working on the final book, and it came to life there, is that character for that story just kept poking away at me like, hey, this story idea, hey, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll stop what I'm working on and do your story. So that's a good point, though, that if it kind of goes away, it doesn't come into fruition, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's that touches on another interesting aspect of doing this kind of creative work.
Yeah.
Is you are almost ideas can become annoying, and you almost have to. In fact, I think that's how I operate most of the time. It's like I don't do anything about them until I'm just fed up with thinking about them. So and they're like, then you, yeah, that's true. I've done a few projects like that. Some projects are actually very, very quick and easy. Mm-hmm. My first book, Maybe Colors, is this one. It's totally different, but it's more like a poem. Look, I've got the. Here I've got the. It's not too. It's beautiful art as well, but this was another. This was done by an artist in Sweden, actually.
Ooh.
But I could read you the first page. It just says, maybe blue comes from the days when people believed the sea went on forever.
Ooh.
And the sky followed after it. Together they would have been very blue. So it's just a little poetic verse about each color, and sometimes they're a little humorous, sometimes they're a little challenging, or just about my experience. There's a lot of fun, but it's very simple in its in the concept and its execution. And so, once I had the desire to write that in the way that I know I wanted, it took me about an hour to finish it. I mean, literally, yeah.
Nice.
And it's very popular. It's one that people find they're very comfortable with reading. Mm-hmm. But for me, I wrote that to share with my first son.
Aww.
And it's really a reminder more to me, because I noticed, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure it's the same for many parents, that, when you're reading a book, you get to read a book around about bedtime. And I noticed that he always chose the books that he thought I wanted to read. How children are so selfless. There's this kind of contradiction where, in a way, where of course they're egocentric as well, because that's the world that they live in for many years. Excuse me. There's been quite a few people sneezing today.
Yes. Oh my gosh, our allergies have kicked up here. But yeah, they are very selfless when it comes to picking story. Like I feel like when they're at a young age, for sure. So. But I noticed how selfless he was, because they want to be in your environment when they see that you are content. Of course, it's so important for them, and that hasn't changed with all my children, certainly. But I wanted to give him a book experience. Okay, first of all, I wrote it and share with him about his experience of color using this word maybe, which I think is so important in our language, and focus on that key word, which is so powerful in situations where you need to allow for other perspectives. So that's what that is all about, using a simple poetic text. And I was so nervous. Him and his friend they were in the house, and they were the first to read the published book, and it worked like a dream. I couldn't believe how well it worked. They didn't even finish the book before they started talking about their experience of Red, of course. And I thought, okay, that's what I want. I'm hooked now. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to contribute, I love that. Oh, and that's, as an author, that's what you want from that, from for the readers to take that and go and have that experience like that. It's just, that's heartwarming. So
yeah, and then the more I think you know yourself, the more experience you get, the more reviews you get, the more feedback you get, the more you realize none of it's personal. The way you feel in the beginning is like, if somebody doesn't like it, it's so, you know, it's so personal for you because it means so much to you. But after, you know, that kind of experience of years of, and realizing that people have so many different things that they notice, things that they want from a book, things that they value, that you can never satisfy. You know, you think the audience is out there for you. You know, there's some strange. I mean, I remember I got one review for that book early on. Can't remember who it was, some magazine. She said the blue page is too blue. What does that mean? You know, I can't.
yeah.
How do I? And then I just started laughing. I just thought, well, ridiculous. For me, that's a ridiculous thing to say. But, or you know, kind of criticism. I'm looking for something constructive, and it just toppled me off my chair.
Yeah, that's like a random one. They must have been having like a bad day or something.
Or some kind of colorblind issue or something.
Yes,
I
for
don't know.
real. So when it
Something.
comes to putting these books together, what is that process like with plugging the art and the words together?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you've got, for me, my experience, you've got the options are you do it yourself, which is not always ideal, but there are a lot of so many artists that do that and very successfully and wonderfully. Or you choose an artist that you want to work with, and that has its challenges as well. I have to say, you know, because what you want ideally is for an artist who's going to do the illustrations to completely appreciate your vision. That you've done the text. I think you understand what I mean, Maddie.
Yeah.
Then you give it to an artist, and you think, you say to them, "I love your work. I love what you've done here. What can you? Are you interested in illustrating my book?" They say yes, love to. Okay, so do what you do best. Then do what I saw in your work. That's why I approached you. But then often it turns out that you end up directing. And so it's not as simple as loving somebody's art and saying, I would love you to work with me on a project that I think suits your style, because you can then you're still involved and in fact, in my experience, well, not always, but you can end up having to control and direct that creative talent as well, which isn't easy.
Yeah, it is really hard. My experience with getting covers made for books, that can be challenging in and of itself because I write a lot of fantasy. Having to try to portray what you're seeing to the person that's going to create the image can be very challenging. So
yeah, and also, I think especially with long fiction, not so much picture books, because I mean you've got the great thing with picture books. Though I think why I love doing it so much is because you have that volume of art and images as well. And I've never grown out of that. I love to see how people illustrate what they do, what the images are like for the story. But I think with long fiction, it's you only have that front cover, and it's so important, as we know, online, that it's actually nonsense that people don't judge a book by its cover. Of course they do. There are lots of very significant guidelines for the way that you should present, especially now with platforms like Amazon. I think if you're writing in a specific genre like you are,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of limited. You can't do what you see in your mind. You have to adhere to certain certain things that people are used to that sell online. In other words, so yeah, it's not as creative as it could be in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what have been some of your biggest challenges since you started publishing?
I think being visible is the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, especially now with social media and there's so many different platforms, trying to reach the audience that is there for your kind of project and the way that I write. It's definitely there, but people don't know. They don't know about me. Not so many people. So that's the big challenge. I think must be the same for many people. But you keep going on the on the feedback you do get. And it's definitely really important. And I think stages where I felt like giving up, and there have been times, definitely. I mean, it's odd in a way because I don't think I could give up. You just write because of the reasons some of the reasons we've already referred to. But in the end, it's not about making money. It would be nice to make money, a lot of money, of course it would.
Yeah.
But what's more valuable, I think, in the end, is that you're making a contribution. When you see somebody in a public library that doesn't know you and they're enjoying your content, that's you've given someone an experience in their life. That's incredible, I think. So you can't forget that. I think that's the most important thing. So I think for motivation, that has already happened for me. So that's what I draw on sometimes. And then that's that little mosquito of an idea that keeps buzzing around in the head that does the rest.
Yes. Those are also unforgettable moments, like when you come across somebody reading it in the library, or they reach out and say, hey, you've inspired me to do this, this, and this. Or like with the books, like the soccer one, it inspired your son and his friends to start talking and explore their curiosity about their world around them and how they viewed something. I love those unforgettable moments like that. They're precious.
Yeah. And I think, you can identify, certainly I've identified the theme for me, and the important reason, or what I'm trying to accomplish is trying to get the reader to question their assumptions and their prejudices maybe, and their routines of thought. Just take them out of it for a little while, so that they can, you can see how where your perspective is, from a different angle. And I think that's really important for a healthy way of living, to have creative experiences like that.
Ooh, yes. Yeah. So do you utilize your books to help teach other like authors or creatives as well? Because you mentioned that you do a lot of teaching and workshops. So
yeah, I haven't used them in that sense at all, actually. I could do. I don't know. I think I certainly, but I do have I've got a. Sorry, I made some homemade iced tea. It looks a little. It doesn't look that tempting, but it's certainly good for my throat. A lot of lemon in it.
Yes, it's good for sore throats and coughs. So
yeah, I'm getting a bit dry. I don't know whether it's the time of year or just talking to you a lot, but I love giving workshops. I've done that since I was invited to give a workshop. Once I've written Maybe Colors.
Mm-hmm.
This one, a friend of mine in I was living in southern Sweden at the time, and a friend asked if she could show it to her principal, and the principal invited me to create a workshop for their program on emotional intelligence. Yeah, at the time, and that was very advanced in Sweden. They had already been having this program for many years, but she thought my book was perfect for to support that program. So I went along, did a workshop, and ended up doing it in many schools in southern Sweden, and then carrying on with different kinds of workshops there. And then we even did one. I have a translation of that book into French and Swedish, of course, because I was there at the time. And I gave a workshop on the sound of language, Maddie, using those three translations, the English, the French, and the Swedish, because those were the languages they were teaching in the Montessori school where they asked me to do the workshop. So the kids got, so I thought it was a wonderful experience for them, because they got to read the same text, and you can really give them an experience about the power of translation and the limits of it as well. And so they got to consider what version they like the most, and why that might be, and then also what constitutes or what helps with fluency in any language. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I love to give workshops, but it's not directly about how to make a picture book. No, I should though, for sure.
But no, that's an excellent way to use that, the whole emotional intelligence, because I've been doing a lot of reading research on that just for my son, especially the last couple of years, because I feel like that was something that wasn't touched heavily on when I was a child. So that's really cool that you got to branch out into that with that book. I'm sorry, I'm really excited about that idea. So
thank you.
Really cool.
No, I mean, so that's why, I mean, that's the focus on the word maybe. If you're talking about conflict resolution, and imagine two kids in the playground. Well, if they're used to, if they're modeled this idea of, okay, well, maybe somebody meant this, or, I'm not necessarily, you can't assume that you're right in a situation, that you not always, at least. You can sometimes try and assert yourself in a nice way, but it would help to have, in situations where there's a risk of conflict, to be able to have that cognitive little trick up your sleeve where you say, okay, well, maybe they meant this instead of what I thought they meant originally. So that's why it's so repetitive in the book. It's like a little really ad nauseum, because it's on every page, but that's the function of it originally.
Ooh, I love that. I'm totally going to have to get my son a copy of this book now for sure. Well, Matthew, we are coming up on the end of our time. So go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can follow you, snag copies of this book, and how to keep up with you.
We're out of time already.
I know. It's gone by really fast.
I spent most of it coughing.
Are so short.
I'm just getting started. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So all my books are available on Amazon. You can Google me, my full name here on your screen. If you just put that in your Google, Google search, Matthew Bennett Young, there's loads of stuff and interviews and tips for writing, if that's what you're interested in, from my experience. And yeah, they're all the books I've published so far. I'm about to release a new one. Actually, I've just got the author's copy here. It's called What's Your Favorite Color? And I know it's another color book, but it's not a sequel.
Yeah. Tell us about that before we go, because that cover is gorgeous. I love the whole fall. It's not really fall. It's just like festive-y.
This is unfortunate, but this is what Amazon does. So you can't sell it, because you buy author copies just to check your draft. This is a first draft. Oh, yeah, she's a great artist. Look at this. This was for the, I don't know if I'm showing it properly.
Beautiful.
This is for the color black. But it's a little bit of a bizarre concept, but what it was, again, Maddie, is like this, it's stuck in my head about this question that kids ask each other at a certain age in their life, where they're just fixated, and you know what it is. That's the title of the book. And because colors are one of the first really meaningful experiences and ways that you identify in the world around you, you know, what's your favorite color? And I guess I suddenly thought, okay, I want to do something with that. But what I did in the book instead was there's a little sort of bizarre concept twist where it's not kids talking to each other. It's like an interview with each color.
Ooh.
So it's almost like red is a personality, and I'm interviewing. All the text is an interview, and it's introduced with the day I met Red, and and it's like an interview setup, and Red is talking about what they've been doing, what it's been doing, you know. So there's all these. It's a lot of fun because there's, you know, loads of things that has the color red, and then just about if it was a personality, like I think Red says, the interviewer says, "How are you?" And Red says, "I'm exhausted." And so the interviewer says, "Well, okay, well, why is that then?" And Red says, "Oh, well, I have a lot of commitments. I'm doing all the things the color red does." What a silly question, in other words. Like, you know. And so the interviewer says, "Like what? What have you been doing?" And so the Red says, "Oh, I do blood. I do communism. I do lasers, food coloring." And so there's all the. So if it works the way I hope it does, the reader's just going to go into this thing and think about their own experience of red in their life. But the whole book then hopefully works in a way that at some point in each interview, the interviewer says, "Okay, I have a question for you. What's your favorite color?" And so the color has to think, okay, what other color do I like to work, or what's, you know, who am I, what's my relationship with other colors, and what do I particularly enjoy? And they're only allowed to choose one.
Oh.
And so then you get, so just while we're on it, I just for a little taste. Red chooses yellow, and then the Red justifies it. But then Stella, the artist, did this for the red and yellow page. So,
wow.
So yellow moves across from one side, and red moves across from the other, and they kind of meet and make a bit of orange. And
yeah, that is gorgeous.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of energy to it as well. Again, so it's kind of
you want
fun.
that good energy though, especially with those kind of picture books like that. Oh man, yeah, that's got to go on the list too, guys. But back to telling everybody where they can get copies and follow. You mentioned Google, Amazon. Where else are you?
I'm pretty much online, digitally, you know, hard copies as well. So. Most of the sales are on Amazon, actually, but there are all other platforms as well. So the best thing would be to, if you're interested out there, is to Google my name and then go on Amazon, try and find them if that's what you want. But yeah, watch this space. There's a lot that's gonna, and they're all very different. They're all united in this theme of trying to provoke. Thinking about your experience and your perspectives, but they're all very different in their in their structure and the way that I choose to do that each time. So, Snowman we haven't mentioned, but that's much more of a this is it's much more of a
graphic here. Yeah,
more of a traditional kind of story. Definitely, what's nice about that is it's using. The illustrations use the photographs, the first person to ever take pictures of snowflakes.
Ooh, that's fascinating.
So the geometric images of snowflakes, Wilson Bentley took them in Jericho. He lived in the end of the 19th century, and he was the first person to photograph snowflakes, and they're absolutely beautiful. I went down to the museum there in Vermont some years ago, and what a person, what a character. There's your inspiration for, I think, for me, it's easy if you incorporate a little bit of history in what you're doing, you start to involve other people's lives. And he, for me, like there was Einstein in Spaceball, and Wilson Bentley definitely supported that effort because his art was just, his photographs were just stunning. And the challenges that he overcame to try and take those images, you're talking about the early days of photography. So he was amazing. So that book is dedicated to him.
That is amazing. And I like that you've tied in historical figures in this. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I think it's me that should thank you, Maddie.
Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe. I've got links to some of Matthew's books below. So snag those, get those and read those to your kids. Just get them to have the art. It's gorgeous. But remember, guys, check us out on socials, follow us, and there's always updates coming out. Have a good one, guys.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to get future notifications when shows come out. Also, be sure to check out my website. I have a blog featuring this creative with some other fun and interesting questions. You can also subscribe to my newsletter there to stay up to date with all things the chapter goddess and Madilynn Dale. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great rest of the day.